everyone, welcome to Mexico Relocation Guide. Welcome back to the channel. I have with me today Marc and Kathleen, who are a wonderful couple that moved from Toronto, Canada, to Puerto Vallarta, Jalisco. Hello, Marc and Kathleen. How are you?
Hello, good.
Hello, very good. Yeah, thank you for having us on.
I discovered Marc and Kathleen through a video that Paul from Move to Mexico did, which, by the way, if you haven't watched that video, I highly recommend it. He did an amazing job telling their story. I'm going to share a link in the comments right now. And yeah, I recommend that you guys go watch this after you guys are done with today's live stream. I also recommend that you go follow Marc and Kathleen's YouTube channel. They're More Life Diaries. I'm also going to share their YouTube channel in the comment section of this video. So once you're done with today's live stream, I highly encourage you to go and check out their channel and follow along with their adventures. They might have their kids join us at some point today. So if you guys have kids at home, maybe they want to watch and see how other kids are enjoying their life in Mexico too. So I see some of you guys joining us already. Thank you so much for being here. Cindy, so nice to see you today. Dale is saying hello from Las Vegas.
Hello.
Hey, it's Mario. He's saying hi, Marc
Hi,
and Kathleen. How are
Mario.
you? Jeff, thank you so much for being here. So why don't we get started? Why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Because you probably will do a much better job at talking a little bit more about yourselves.
Sounds good. Well, I'm Marc.
I'm Kat, or
and
Kathleen.
We're from Toronto, Canada. We recently made the move to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico in November of 2022. So just last year. And yeah, we have two young children, Bastian, who is turning 6 in September, and Callie, who's turning 2 at the end of the month. So we made the move with our two little kids, and yeah, just to kind of pursue a dream of ours. And our passion has always been to travel. And we had been, settled in Toronto for much longer than we wanted to. So we decided to reignite our passion and our dreams and to move here to Mexico.
Why Puerto Vallarta? Like, how did you guys end up choosing this city?
We looked at a few places before Puerto Vallarta, but I think once we saw like some of the photos of it, it's like the beach and the mountains, like the beautiful lush mountains that really like struck us. And then we started to look more into it and what was available for families, and it just felt right. It checked off all of our boxes.
And we had lived in around 2014, 2015 in Santiago de Chile. And our favorite place to travel on weekends was a town called Valparaiso, which is right on the coast of Chile, about an hour from Santiago. And it was our absolute favorite place to travel. Very like bohemian vibes, graffiti everywhere. And when we saw Puerto Vallarta or pictures of, it reminded us a lot of Valparaiso. So we were like, I think that's the place we need to check out before anywhere else.
And did it live up to the expectation?
Yes, we love it
Yeah, I
here.
think so.
We're so happy.
I think surpassed a lot of expectations. Having traveled in the past, you have expectations, but we're also very adaptable. So we look at things as a learning experience and just to adapt to new things. And I think overall, in terms of expectations, traveling with kids, moving here with kids has definitely surpassed our expectations, but also just living here is completely different. And that's also been nothing but great to us.
I love hearing that. That's so awesome. So you guys obviously had some, experience being in Latin America and not only traveling, but it sounds like you were living in Chile. So you had a little bit of like, this wasn't your first introduction into Latin America. How would you say Mexico compares to Chile now that you've been in both countries?
I think when we were driving through it first, we felt like there was this familiarity. We're like, okay, yeah, it feels sort of the same. But now that we've been here for a while, it's definitely, yeah, it's not, I mean, it's kind of hard to explain because like we were in Santiago, which is obviously a huge city. And now we're in Puerto Vallarta, which is more like a, small beach vibe. And so it's a very different culturally right away there. The Spanish is different. I mean, I should say it's different in Chile. Like they have their very own unique like slang and stuff like that. We found coming here, it was much easier to understand and much easier to learn and pick up on the Spanish. And the food is also like, it is actually, there's a few similarities, but overall I would say that it's quite different. Like the food is completely different cuisine, but we love both of them. And I think one thing that we can see in both is the emphasis on family. At the time, obviously, we were just a couple of kids. We didn't have any children with us. So we weren't really part of that, but we were working in schools with children and families, so we could see the importance of family and how that structure was. And that's one thing that we can see is similar here and something that we really like.
The community aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course. And I know many people feel that way. They say, wow, I really didn't realize how separated I was from other people until I moved to Mexico. And all of a sudden I have I'm constantly talking to the same people. I see the same people on the street on my way to the laundromat or to the grocery store or something. And, we wave at each other, we say hi, we make small chit chat. And it really feels like I'm part of a community. So would you share that sentiment?
For sure, yeah. Like, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, I was gonna say, like, we in Toronto, we would consider ourselves a lot more introverted. It's a lot more difficult to actually get to meet people, and it's again just a really big city vibes. Everyone keeps to themselves. Everyone does their own thing. Even getting together with friends in Toronto is a little bit of a struggle because everyone's just very busy with everything. Whereas here, if you put yourself out there a little bit more, and if you put the effort towards, meeting people within the foreigner community, also meeting locals, you'll definitely meet a lot of people. So, definitely putting yourself out there. We were able to meet, great community, foreigners, locals alike. And yeah, just walking down the streets, greeting everyone, greeting friendly Mexican people. It's just like, everyone is so nice.
Like we know all of our neighbors on the street. They recognize us. Even if we don't really know them, like we recognize each other, and there's always this hello, like some of the shop owners and stuff like that.
High-fiving the kids. Like all of this stuff.
I love that. Yeah.
Even one of our local taco places like was commenting on the kids, because they're like, wow, they've really grown so much in a short period of time. And I'm like, it's weird that it was the first taco place that we went to when we arrived. And it is really kind of like they saw us from day one and they see us now and they're like, oh wow, your kids are just growing up in front of our eyes.
Yeah, so they've seen the kids grow from.
They remembered.
Yeah.
They paid attention. Yeah, it's nice, right? Yeah. Which also, you guys, you're lucky, right? You have each other and you have a family, and that's nice because you're there together. A lot of people are moving alone, and it's important to be able to have that sense of community so that you don't feel so isolated. So if you're watching at home and that's you, that is one of the biggest perks of what people like about Mexico is just how inclusive it is, even if you're alone. Did you guys consider anywhere else other than Puerto Vallarta, or were you just like, we're going to PV?
We started to look at Playa del Carmen, and I think what we didn't like there didn't seem like much. The community aspect didn't really seem like there was much of a community there. It was more hotels and tourism and all that stuff. That's how we heard about it because it's a popular destination. But when we were looking in terms of living and where the neighborhoods were, it just seemed very separate. And just everything was a new build and big, like not skyscrapers, but large hotel type things where everything here seems more organically grown over time. And there's still a lot of traditional looking buildings and culture. And we like that aspect too.
Yeah. And we basically just like when we decided, even before we decided actually that we wanted to move to Mexico, we were watching YouTube videos. And Playa del Carmen is just that place that might have been popular at the time. Like the algorithm was pushing it through. So we're like, this looks like a beautiful place, beautiful beach. Like that's the kind of life that we like. But once we started digging a little bit deeper into different locations, I think PV just really stood out to us as a yeah, more traditional. Although it is very touristy here, there's still a lot of like traditional buildings, very similar to the town in Chile, Valparaiso, that we really liked. So it just really stood out to us as a place that we could see ourselves living.
And also what we liked about it in terms of infrastructure is that there is an airport here that, you know, you could fly in direct from Toronto if we have people visiting or for when we want to go home. There's hospitals, there's lots of schools. So we figured too, in terms of a transitional place, like coming from Toronto to here, it made a lot of sense because it wouldn't be like, you know, huge shock or like we're trying to settle in and we have to drive 2 hours to go to somewhere where there's something for us that we need to buy. I mean, there's everything here. We have looked a little bit at other smaller beach towns, specifically Puerto Escondido, and the name is escaping me right now. It starts with an M. Mazatlan.
Mazatlan.
Okay.
As other possible places that maybe in a couple of years we would explore those options. But yeah, the reason for Puerto Vallarta was the infrastructure was there. It's just like an easy
transition
to settle in somewhere new.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Mazatlan is, you know, a behemoth of a city, and then Puerto Escondido is much more like of a hippie town, bohemian vibe, lots of backpackers kind of thing. So yeah, totally. I feel like you got a good you know, good middle ground.
Yeah. And our goal is to explore a lot more places, specifically on the coast. I know that a lot of people that live inland, they love it. We consider ourselves a little bit of beach bums, so we love the beach, and we might not always want that or be like that, but for now, that's what we're seeking. So we are exploring the coast up and down a little bit, and seeing, you know, what else really stands out to us.
We do want to visit inland as well and just see like differences.
Ideally in the summer.
Yeah, in the summer.
Yeah, exactly. Get away from the heat, right?
Yeah, and yeah, we've already visited some beautiful little towns here. This is Callie, our youngest.
How are you? Yeah, and you should, and absolutely. And my mother-in-law says a really good phrase, and I'm going to copy her. You're not a tree. You can move, right? You're not rooted in one specific place. You can absolutely move. So yeah, and you can use Puerto Vallarta as a home base while you check out other parts of Mexico. Why not?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, like places that we've visited that we absolutely love would be like San Pancho was one of them, which is a little beach town. Like we romanticize the smaller beach town vibes. And I think that's something we'd want to try out eventually. And if we don't like it, then Puerto Vallarta is always here. There's always so many options. But our goal really is to travel and visit and explore this beautiful country. Like it has so much to offer. Why not see a lot of it?
Yeah. You guys, I just want to point out that you have a few fans in the comments that follow you guys. Are so excited you guys are on here tonight. And anyway, I'll give them a shout out. One of them is Beach Life. They say, hey, I follow them on YouTube. They have really good content.
Good, thank you.
The other one is Gerardo Leon. Love your videos, guys. You are terrific. Welcome to Mexico. So anyway, I just want to point that out. You have a few fans watching us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Now, a lot of people are planning their move to Mexico maybe years before, and some people plan it weeks before. What was that planning process like for you guys? Can you walk us through how long before you actually moved to Puerto Vallarta, before you started actually planning it, and what was that like?
Yeah, it went fairly quickly for us, to be honest. So, like we mentioned, we moved in November of 2022. We got here November 1st, I think. And at the beginning of the year 2022, moving was not even a thought in our head.
Really?
So everything went by really quickly. I think a few months into the year, we decided that Toronto wasn't for us anymore, and just the overall lifestyle that we were living, working long hours, 9 to 5, having to commute, it's just not the life that we wanted to live anymore. And yeah, I think from there we just started doing some research, and like once we found Mexico, it really just clicked for us. And the overall process went by fairly quickly. We applied for a temporary residency at our local consulate in Toronto. From there, like a couple weeks later, no, I'd say we got a response fairly quickly, but we were planning on moving towards the end of the summer. So they're like, hey, reach back like a, a month or two before you plan on moving. So that's exactly what we did. And that whole process went by fairly quickly. So I'd say like within 6 months time, like the whole process was in the way.
Completed.
It was completed. Yeah. With the exception of obviously coming here and finalizing the process once we were here.
But around the paperwork, getting ourselves ready to leave was a little bit hectic. Like we just had to get rid of a lot of stuff, and you don't realize how much stuff you have until you
Yeah.
fit it into your car.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of slow
Yeah.
decluttering, selling clothes, selling items,
Many
giving things
rounds of
away,
decluttering. Yeah.
parting with things that you didn't really want, like having to make those decisions of what's coming and what are you getting rid of.
And we tell this to people all the time because we're doing this from before we even decided to move. Like, declutter your things. You don't need that many things. Go in your catch-all closet and just declutter your place. And a clean space is like a decluttered mind. You can think more clearly, and that's something that we had been practicing since before. But even then, through many rounds of decluttering, even before we decided to move, you find yourself a few days before moving and you're like, I should have done more. I should have done more. I should have gotten rid of more. I don't need all these things still. But yeah, we fit everything in a car, and we have a little cargo space on top, and that's what we brought with us at the end of the day. So you really need to get rid of a lot, and you don't need that much once you're here.
Yeah, I think that was the most painful part. It was just getting rid of it and like realizing, no, there's still more. You gotta keep going and keep going. So
and like anyone else, we get attached to random things that we probably shouldn't be attached to, just material objects. And we really wanted to trade in those material things for experiences and to live the life that we want. So just having that mindset helped us detach from a lot of things and get rid of a lot of things as well.
So you moved with only whatever you could fit into your car.
Yeah, we have a few things stored at our parents' place, more so like clothes and clothes for the kids, like for us not to have to buy things as they get older. So we have like hand-me-downs and those types of things. So we do have things, but our parents, when they do come and visit, they'll just bring a little suitcase here and there. And then whatever doesn't fit here, we can then give away in Mexico.
Yeah, makes sense. I think that's great. If you have at home a family member that can hold on to a few things, if in case you're not sure whether you're going to need them in the future. Is there anything you regret, like leaving behind, or specific things that you haven't been able to find? I know I get that question a lot.
I didn't bring very much.
Okay.
I just was like,
brought like one suitcase.
Yeah, I kept packing all this stuff for the kids. Like they have so many toys, and I thought I had a lot of clothes, and I was like, oh, I really don't.
And I probably brought too much because I end up wearing the same things like almost every day. So I'm like, you really don't need that much, even if you're, it's always hot here. Like the seasons are not that much different. Like it is, yeah. It's just more hot and humid now than it was during the winter time. So you really don't need much, and you really just stick to what you're comfortable in, wearing the same things, not on a daily basis, but in rotation.
And Kathleen, like a good mom, was putting her kids before herself, and she forgot all about herself.
Yeah, I didn't bring much. I think the other thing I regret, like a few kitchen items, I think that I would like to have, like a slow cooker or something like that. We had one at home and we didn't bring it, and that's just like one random thing that I really wish I had to make like broth or something.
And they have again, like the convenience of living in Puerto Vallarta. They have a Costco, they have a Walmart, they have a lot of local stores, so that if you do need anything or if you regret, you're just a short drive away. Like you can go buy anything that you could find in Canada or the United States or wherever you're from. So again, just that convenience of having that the stores available is huge for us. And again, we just regret not bringing it because we sold it. We had one. We don't necessarily want to spend the money to like buy it again, but we can definitely buy it. Like it is here for sure.
Sure. It's not because it isn't available. It's because you're trying to live without it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. We really wanted to minimize the amount of things that we had when we moved here. And again, like living in Toronto, you want all the kitchen stuff, you want all the gadgets. And we're just like, you know what? Whatever this apartment comes with, let's deal with that. Let's manage around it. And then if we really, really, really want something, let's go out and buy it. And we're kind of just in that process now of, finally wanting certain things that we'll probably purchase shortly. Yeah.
Plus, I assume that your rental came furnished, so that also helps without you having to, bring all your furniture or buy a lot of furniture when you get there.
Yeah, the furniture part we have. I think we don't have an oven, so that like we had to learn a little bit more stovetop recipes, and that's why we were like, do we get an air fryer? Do we get an Instapot? Do we get? We're trying to decide like which, and just pick one extra accessory that we want.
Yeah, let's talk about that a bit, because a lot of people don't realize that, when Mexican listings say fully equipped kitchen, it doesn't necessarily mean fully equipped. It just means like, you'll be able to cook.
Yeah, and we wanted a somewhat traditional looking apartment. Like we wanted to find a place that felt like we were living in Mexico. There's a lot of very modern places, and there's no issue if that's what you want. Like you'll definitely find it here. But we wanted to one, feel like we're in Mexico. Have the kids also have that kind of cultural experience. And a lot of Mexican style apartments do not have ovens, or they're very limited in terms of what there is in the kitchen. But we just manage around it. We cook.
They make great food in these tiny kitchens.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, we figured we could try it too. But yeah, I guess we miss an oven. We miss baking cookies and that kind of stuff. So it's just probably not a bad thing, because
we're healthier without
without the cookies. And the banana
really? Were you making a lot of desserts?
Especially like with winters in Toronto, you want to fatten up, you want to bake
lasagna, baking cookies, all of the things.
Carb up.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Yeah, you got to get used to like the beachy, lighter food so that you stay cooler off too. That's a great point. A lot of people, they always ask like, will I be able to survive the summer in a beach town in Mexico, right? Because, yes, a lot of homes have air conditioners. No, there is no central air conditioning. It's usually limited to maybe the living room and the master bedroom, or maybe some places have it in every room in the house. But the thing you have to be careful with, if you don't know this at home, is that if you use a lot of air conditioning in specific zones of Mexico, you get kicked up into what's called the DAC, or the DAC. And anyway, without getting too much into the specifics, it ends up costing you two times or three times what it would cost maybe your neighbor who uses very little air conditioning. So how have you guys dealt with that, coming from, a place where the summer is really, really nice, and then the winter is cold, coming to like, a summer where the highs are in the 90s, mid 90s. or in centigrades, maybe in the 30s. How have you dealt with that?
So yeah, we only have air conditioning in the kids' room, and everything else is not air conditioned. It's very open, so we can't try and like cool the whole place through that one air conditioning. We can't lie, it's hot. It is hot. We are on the top floor. I think like the roofing really kind of brings in the heat and keeps it in. Right now it's rainy season, so when it rains, that usually in the evenings, it cools it down quite nicely. But yeah, we've been sweating a lot.
Yeah.
We're just sweaty all the time. You have to get comfortable with being sticky and sweaty like 24/7. It's not that bad here because everyone's sweating. Like it's not just you. You're not just like a one weird person that's sweating too much on the bus. Like everyone's doing it. But
I'm someone who sweats a lot in general, so it brings me comfort to see others sweating as much as I am. Yeah, so everyone on the street, I mean, a lot of people, like guys, just not wearing shirts, walking on the street, walking to work, because it is that hot. But I think that, you know, we find it tolerable, and we actually, like, it is very hot, it is very humid, and the rain is a nice touch. So it rains almost every evening, and we get a nice cool breeze coming through our place. So for those that don't know, like the whole back side that you can't see here is open in our place. So when it's hot, it is hot because it's a warm breeze coming in, and then when it rains, it's a cool breeze coming in. So it's just an we're adapting to it basically, and it was kind of the experience that we wanted. We came in again wanting to live like Mexican people that are here, and a lot of people, they don't have AC, and we're thankful to have at least one AC in the kids' room. That's the most important, and we just, you know, figure out how to live without it. And yeah, it's like it's not even a complaint, it's a small discomfort, but it doesn't compare to how much, you know, benefit and how happy we are to actually be living here. And to the point where like it is really hot outside, but it's not as touristy outside. There's not as many people coming in and out of the city. So it is a great time to come here if you can't handle the heat.
Very
Because
good point.
nice and quiet. The
Yeah.
beaches are nice and quiet. And I mean, if you're staying in an Airbnb, you'll probably have AC anyways. But the city's just been really, really enjoyable this time of year.
Yeah, really good point. There's a blog post on our site that talks about when is the best time to move to Mexico, and I recommend that for touristy areas like Puerto Vallarta, the summer is actually one of the best times because one, rentals are not as competitive. Two, what you just mentioned is not as trafficked, right? So that you have more amenities to yourself. If you go to a beach club, you might have, you know, the entire pool to yourself at times.
Yeah.
Especially during the week. And then also, like, if you like it and can tolerate it in its worst season, then you'll really enjoy it, right, when the winter comes. So
Exactly. That's basically like, and it's basically our one regret is not moving here during the off season.
oh, really?
And it's not that, you know, we love the place we live in, and you know, to in comparison to what we are seeing now, even back then, like we're paying a decent price, but there's just so much more available, just in terms of like apartments. You know, there once the snowbirds come in, like it takes up a lot uh, of apartments and stuff like that. So I think
Yeah.
that's like basically our only regret is timing your move here during the off season, so you can really see a lot of apartments. It was very slim pickings when we did get here, but thankfully we landed on a place that, you know, checked off most of our things that we were looking for.
Yeah, let's talk about that because a lot of people, that's their number one concern is, will I be able to find something on my budget?
Yeah.
What is available in my budget? So what was that process? I'm assuming you guys are renting long term. Is that what
Yep.
you signed a contract for a year?
Yep. So
Okay.
we signed a contract for a year. I tell people all the time, because we do get the same question all the time. It's like, join Facebook groups. Facebook has an infinite amount of groups that can help you, one with relocation information, but also just apartment information. A lot of, groups in English. There's groups in Spanish as well that are definitely worth checking out. And that's basically how we found our place. We were just on Facebook groups, looking at places, and yeah, we ended up landing on this place here. And the good thing about Facebook groups too is there is kind of like a transparency because you can see the person's profile that is posting the apartment. Like you can quickly see if it's fraudulent or not. There's typically a lot of information in regards to the place. There's a lot of pictures of the apartment. So even if you're looking for places from a different country, you kind of get a good idea of, in most cases, what the apartment looks like.
Yeah, fully agree. Sorry. Sorry, I think I cut you off, Marc. Go right ahead. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you.
Okay, good. So tell us a little bit about your apartment. How big is it?
So we have there's still music in the background.
Music right now?
Okay, now it's good. Perfect.
Okay.
So our apartment, I'd say, is around 1,000 square feet. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom. We have a decently sized terrace where we have like some water activities for the kids. We can sit out there. There's some beautiful plants, and we have a balcony in the front as well. And yeah, 2-bedroom. The 2 bedrooms are very big as well. So for the kids, that's perfect. Like they have all of their toys in their bedroom. They can spread out as much as they want. And yeah, like 1,000 square feet. And we pay 22,000 pesos per month. So 22.
Yeah, that's not bad for a large apartment that size. What neighborhood are you in? Do you mind sharing?
Cinco de Diciembre. So we're which is right next to Central.
And we're about a minute walk from the beach. So very easy for us to just pack a bag without, having to pack for the day and just walk down to the beach, catch a beautiful sunset. That's something that we definitely wanted, was to be walking distance from the beach. When we first got here, we were in an Airbnb for a month, and it was all the way up the mountain. So we got to experience that. And once we experienced that with the wagon and the kids and everything, we're like, let's go as close as the beach as we can.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, that's a workout for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've been sore for like a couple of days just bringing that wagon all the way up the mountain. So,
on the cobblestone too.
On the cobblestone roads,
yeah. Yeah, on the cobblestones too. Man, that's a good wagon.
So in comparison to, a smaller town, perhaps inland, it could be very expensive in comparison. But again, to prices that we see in PV, it's definitely on the lower end, I'd say, of what you can get if you're a foreigner coming in. And yeah, it's just like basically it's the going rate in our neighborhood, I'd say, for something similar.
Yeah, you're so centrally located too. The Cinco de Diciembre area has basically everything at your disposal. Just a few minutes walking. Do you guys do a lot of walking? Do you drive in PV? How do you get around?
We do a lot of walking within the neighborhood, and if we're going into Central or to Zona Romantica, then we're walking. The kids go to school in Versailles, so for that we drop them off in the car because it would be too far for them. We're never on time. Yeah. So we'd have to leave really early to go get them there on time.
Walkability was one of the biggest things for us as well, like walkability to the beach, but also to run errands, to do
market
runs, everything. We came from downtown Toronto, and the reason we love living downtown Toronto, despite the ridiculous cost of living there, was that we could do everything on foot. And that's the thing we loved most about living there. So just being able to park the car here and do everything on foot here was definitely top of our checklist when we were living here. And yeah, we do have the car here. We drove down here. We use it on a daily basis to take the kids to school. But besides that, like, we love just walking around our neighborhood. And there's no better way to explore than to explore on foot.
Yeah, that's also how you meet a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, you get to see like the person in the small tiendita, or you get to meet the person in the small bakery, or, you know, all the people that really.
There's a lot of like hidden gems you would never find if you were driving. You have to kind of really look inside and be, oh, that's actually a restaurant or a bakery or something, and then you get to stop in. So that's how we found a lot of our little spots.
That's the thing here. It's like, it looks like just a door from the outside, and you look in and it's a beautiful courtyard full of plants and trees and flowers, and it's a restaurant. And there's no way that if you weren't on foot, and even if you are walking, like, you really have to stop and take it in. Otherwise, you'll just walk right past it. But there are so many hidden gems here within the city. So just, yes, you're going to do a lot of walking if you're visiting or moving here. But there's no better way to experience a new place than to do it on foot. And we have the convenience of having the car. So we can still explore beaches that are nearby. So we often just take a 10-15 minute drive to like Conchas Chinas Beach, which we love, or even go north to Bucerias or San Pancho, Sayulita, etc. So we're still able to explore our new city, but also little towns that are surrounding the area.
Yeah.
And for those that don't have a car, there's great bus systems here as well. But
very good.
Yeah. You just have to learn a little. There is a learning curve at the beginning on the bus system for sure, but once you get it down, then, you know, it's also a very inexpensive way to get around for sure, especially since you're in a very centrally located area where, you know, there are buses going to many different directions around you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the bus route here is, although it's a little bit bumpy and crazy, you really have to hold on. Like, we have taken the bus because, again, it's a great way to get around. It's a great way to get a little glimpse inside a different culture as well. It's just like the public transportation is different in Canada, but it is really good. Runs, you know, north and south, and really easy to get around if you don't speak Spanish. Like, the locations are always on the windows as well. So not as intimidating as you think once you actually start using it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great that you're using the public transportation in such a short time. It sounds like you guys have acclimated really well, because you're really being intentional about it. And I really, really, you know, applaud that about you guys. Which, you know, brings us to another frequently asked question is, do you guys speak Spanish? And if you don't, or if you're not fluent in it, you know, what kind of challenges has that presented for you just being in Puerto Vallarta?
I would say we speak like an intermediate level Spanish. As we mentioned earlier, we lived in Chile, so we learned a lot there. We were working in schools, so we were working with local people, so we had to learn. That was a few years ago, so coming here was like a little bit of like a refresher course, but we're able to speak Spanish enough to order in the restaurant, go to grocery stores, markets, get the car fixed, talk to our the kids' teachers, doctor's appointments, all that kind of stuff. We have no issue understanding and communicating. So that, I'm sure, like, it does make it easier that we don't have to worry, are we going somewhere that they will be able to speak to us in English? It's never a question for us.
And I think, we speak more than beginner Spanish. Like, we're able to get around fine. Navigating the Spanish language has never been an issue for us here. Which is definitely different than. Sorry, 1 second.
He wants you, Daddy. Hi.
And like a lot of people that move here with, you know, zero understanding of the language, it could be more challenging for them. We haven't really had to deal with that much, but I think we're at the point in our intermediate Spanish where we're looking for a lot more conversational Spanish. So I think we've kind of reached a plateau where we can get around, we can do everything in Espanol, but now it's just like we want to get to know some of the Mexican people that we interact with on a daily basis a little bit better and be able to like dig deeper than just surface level conversations. So we're at that point now, and again, that just comes with putting yourself out there, practicing, learning new words every day. And it is like the number one thing that we recommend to foreigners coming here, even on a week vacation, or if you're moving here permanently, like definitely light up that Duolingo or whatever and learn some basic Spanish, because it will transform your experience completely. Even in a city like Puerto Vallarta, like yes, we knew that people spoke English, but just having that interaction in Spanish completely changed our experience living here. And we're actually surprised. Like, I don't know if it's because we live in Cinco, which is a little bit, next to Centro and Zona Romantica, where there is a lot more Spanish. In Cinco, you have a lot more locals living here, but yeah, we do everything in Spanish. Like, we don't use English when we leave the house at all. So that was a surprise to us, but that's exactly what we wanted. It was like our number one concern was, is there going to be too much English in Puerto Vallarta? And we were like pleasantly surprised that there was a lot of Spanish and we would get to practice and learn on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are a great example of really just trying to put yourselves out there. I know it can be a little bit uncomfortable at the beginning, but I mean, it sounds like you guys are managing and handling it really well. Even given that you had a little bit of, you had a lot of the language knowledge before moving, it's still, yeah, exactly. And the Cinco de Diciembre neighborhood is more of a local neighborhood, so you're going to be forced to, interact more in Spanish as opposed to like living in the Zona Romantica or in the Marina.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
And
totally
for
agree
us,
with
like, if we go out somewhere and then the waiter like speaks to us in English, we're like, oh, like speak to us in Spanish. We need to, but at the same time, like they're probably proud that they speak English,
totally.
and we're proud that we speak a little bit of Spanish. So we're like, let's do the language exchange. You speak English, we'll speak Spanish, and that's the way it is.
Now I know you guys live in a, very heavily foreigner populated city of Mexico, right? Like it's one of the top 4 places in Mexico where a lot of people either go retire or, there's more and more young families like you guys that are moving to these, hotspots. Have you gotten, I know that it's kind of going around in the media that there's this like anti-American sentiment from Mexicans towards, gringos. Have you felt any of that negativity in your day-to-day interactions with any of the people that you met or dealt with in Puerto Vallarta or anywhere for that matter?
I'd say that, sorry. I'd say that in our day to day, we have not gotten any sort of weird energy from locals here. Nothing that I can think about. What is said when we're not around, I don't know, but
Sure.
nothing to our face. No one has been even like remotely rude to us at all. Again, we do try a lot to speak in Spanish, and we get around speaking Spanish, which again, I think that has a big, that plays a big role in it. I think that there's a lot of negative energy or comments made towards people that don't even try at all. But no, we haven't had to deal with anything like that. That
That's
being
good.
said, we are also on YouTube.
Yeah.
And we do get comments here and there on YouTube, which is normal. 99% of our comments are always good, but you do always get the gentrification comment or leave and stuff like that. So very small percentage. It's to be expected. It's everything is changing. And it's important to note as well that there's a lot of foreigners coming to Mexico, but it is no different than a lot of foreigners going to the United States, a lot of foreigners going to Canada. Our town of Toronto is basically all foreigners. Like, yes, it's always been a melting pot, but it's gone more and more immigrants over the years. So it's not just exclusively Puerto Vallarta or Mexico. Like, it is happening everywhere in the world at a very rapid rate.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, the pandemic really changed that. More and more people were able to work from home, or more and more people have access now to the internet like they never had access before. And they have the ability to find resources to make a move or find out about new places. So yeah, it's changing everywhere. I agree with that. And I also agree with you that, yes, the more you put yourself out there in a public forum like YouTube, you're going to be open to all kinds of, maybe not all kinds, because I agree, we get very few negative comments. We do get them, but it's few and far in between. Most of them are very positive, and you're going to be open to, people saying something negative about anything that you put out, whether it's gentrification or anything else. There's always going to be somebody looking for a way to complain about something. But I would also agree with you that of all our customers and all the people that we've helped in Mexico Relocation Guide, I haven't had, luckily, anybody say, I don't feel welcomed here, or I don't feel like they like me here. In fact,
Yeah.
quite the opposite.
And again, like, that's why you always have to take the internet with a grain of salt. Like I say, like, the internet is not real. Like, the life you live when you're actually somewhere is not the internet at all. We've had nothing but pleasant conversations and a pleasant experience actually living here. Whereas, we see the different side of it on the internet, but on the internet, people are not getting the full scope of things, right? We're just showing something, or we're just saying something. And again, you're like live on camera, and not to say that we've said anything bad at all, but you're just not getting to know us in person, us actually trying and integrating and just being who, like, we really are. So again, as creators, we just take it with a grain of salt and move on. It's unfortunate sometimes because it does hurt, and we really do try, and we really do try to learn the new language and learn the culture and teach the culture to our children. So that's definitely like part of the experience for us. And that's one of the reasons we chose Mexico to move to. People online, they see a small percentage of that, so it is what it is.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. How are your kids doing? Like, what is it like for them? I mean, do they notice any differences, or have they? I mean, I know your 2-year-old, maybe not so much as your 6-year-old, but what is it like for them?
So the older one, I think when we first moved here, it was a little bit of we moved here, we were traveling through Mexico actually right around Halloween. So I think that was a bit of a shocker that he didn't have like the whole candy thing, and there was like this whole other thing going on that he was asking a lot of questions with Dia de los Muertos. And then when Christmas came around and there wasn't snow, he was like concerned if Santa would find us without the snow, and like, where's the snow? Does the snow ever happen? When does the snow happen? So a lot of questions around that, but he's been doing great. So the school that he's in is 100% Spanish. There are a few other foreign kids that speak English, so it was kind of perfect that he had, he didn't feel alone or like completely singled out. But also that the teachers there are always speaking Spanish, so he's picking up the language really well. Mm-hmm. They teach like traditional dancing there as well, and he really, really, really is into that. And like anytime they have the performances down at the Maricon, he's like super into it and wants to learn. He's embracing it. He's making, he has a mix of friends, other foreign friends, Mexican friends, and he loves tacos. He loves the food. I think that's always funny to see him like try and like up his spice level.
Yeah, he's trying like the different hot sauces every now and then. He's like, it's not too
like,
spicy.
I can deal with this one. And like, He's really not. He's never been shy about trying new food. So he's trying everything. He loves, like shrimp tacos, enchiladas, like all of the things. So he's really embracing it. I think he likes it here. When he talks about going back home to Canada, he's like, yeah, not forever. Like I want to go back for like a month and then come here. So this is his home. I think that's how he feels. And then the little one is just, I mean, he doesn't know anything.
He's just he moved here when he was
1.5.
1.5, so he'll know nothing but this. Yeah. And like he's starting to now talk, and I'd say like 75% of the words he says are in Spanish. And he just started daycare, which is also fully Spanish. So like he's learning very quickly, which is great. But it's important also to know that like in preparation for the move, we put our we put our oldest son in Spanish class, and we got like little books that we could read to him about Mexico, and showing him where Mexico is on a map and showing him the cultural differences. Like it's all things that we did in preparation to really make this move as smooth as possible, and just kind of like dip his toes into moving. And again, like it comes with preparation. We didn't just cold turkey it, leave Canada's in the past and this is what it is now. Like there are things that we did in preparation for the move for him.
And the funny thing, I think the funniest thing is that now, like if like we have the aircon in the room for them, he's complaining that it's cold, and like a drawing class that they have an aircon on, and he wants to bring a sweater. Like he just says it's cold, and we're like.
So they have the aircon in their room, and he complains that it's too cold.
Yeah, he'll wear full long sleeve pajamas and a blanket, even when the aircon.
That's hilarious.
He's like
you
very much adjusted.
You should go sleep in that room.
Just sweating all over the bed, like sweat glands on the bed, dying. He's freezing cold in his room.
I was just going to say, when you mentioned about the weather, that, before you know it, when you go somewhere inland, you're going to be freezing. Like you're going to get so used to the warm weather that when you do go somewhere at a higher elevation, you'll get cold.
We were joking that when we go back to Canada with them, like he's really excited to see snow again. But if we go during that time, he's going to be like, ooh, it's way too cold.
Driving here, so we left Toronto in October, like late October, and we got here in November. But once we crossed the border here, there were like Mexicans in puffer jackets and
wearing shorts,
wearing beanies and stuff, and we're shorts, flip flop. It's hot. Like it was already starting to get a little bit cold in Toronto. So yeah, it just always like threw us off. Even in Puerto Vallarta, like puffer jackets, puffer vests.
I had people comment on like on my little one. I was holding him and he had no socks on, and I'm like, it's 24 degrees Celsius, so it's pretty warm. And some people are like, isn't your baby cold? I'm like, no.
Yeah, totally.
It's getting really hot.
Summer for us. Yeah, totally. What does your family say? Like, what does your family back home think?
So they've been here pretty much all, like his parents, my mom, a bunch of our friends. They had a great time coming here. My mom was a little bit hesitant, but then she came here and she saw like the Sunday dancings in Malecon, and she's like, oh, I could move here. I could live here all year round, or 6 months of the year. She had a great time. I think they were obviously sad that we were moving far away, and their grandkids and that type of thing. But now when they come here, they have, 2 months or a month of just nonstop time with them, rather than, like a few hours every week. So it's a bit of a change. It's different. But when they're here, it's like, a lot more quality time, a lot longer time spent with them.
And just like, a big reason we moved here is to be able to like grow with their children and adapt to a new space. We're able to give that in some sort of way to like their relationship with their grandparents. Like they're able to experience something new together. And like the grandkids are able to show the grandparents around and like have some really quality time together. Whereas in Toronto, we were just kind of in the routine of always doing the same thing, on a weekly basis. Like, yes, they are seeing their grandparents more often, but they're just doing the same things. And now they're just doing completely different things. And yes, the family dynamic is different, but we're all able to experience something new together. And my parents came as well, so they came for a couple of months, and stayed just right the apartment, literally right below us. So we basically
Oh,
had like a
nice.
whole house to ourselves, and it was just really good to get to experience that with them, and the kids can just run up and down the stairs and hang out. And funny enough, like my parents were very comfortable with the idea of us moving to Puerto Vallarta. That's because we came here on a family trip 25 years ago.
They were
And
familiar.
we stayed in the marina. We stayed here for a couple of weeks. So it was more so like a resort. It's nothing like moving here, but they had some familiarity with the city and exploring the city, and they had those great memories in their head. So they kind of like understood us wanting to move there.
Yeah. So it sounds like both of your families have always been more open-minded about, their neighbors down south, and kind of taking also what you read on the media with a grain of salt, that, you have to experience it for yourself. Also, you can't write off an entire country for a few places, right, that are kind of bad apples. So,
Exactly. Like typically, just like the internet isn't always real, sometimes there's stuff on the media that's very questionable. And when they talk about an event that happens in Mexico, they say Mexico. Mexico is a huge country.
yeah.
There's a lot of little corners in Mexico. So it's not that there was, one specific thing that happened in Mexico. It was in a very specific area. There was something a few months ago that happened in Mazatlan. We're getting all of these messages like, hey, are you guys okay? Like, what's going on? I'm
Yeah.
like, Mazatlan, it's basically like for Canadians, like if I'm in Toronto and something happens in Quebec City, it's so far removed from us. It
Yeah.
has nothing to do with like our area at all. So yeah, you just have to put these things in perspective when you're watching the news or you're reading stuff online.
Yeah, definitely. Are there things that so far you guys dislike about, maybe let's start with Puerto Vallarta first, and then we can
Mhm.
go into Mexico, but maybe talk about some of the surprises or dislikes.
I think we talked about this in one of our videos, and it's not like a it's not something that we didn't expect, but it was just during high season, like the sheer amount of tourism. And again,
Yeah.
like we live near Centro, we near Zona Romantica. We were completely expecting that. And some weekends it is overwhelming. We navigate around that by not going to like those areas specifically. We just go elsewhere. So um, we completely expected that moving here. So it is just like a small negative that was completely expected. So it's fine. And again, we just take the opportunity to head out of town and go visit a new town or visit a new beach or do some other activities that are off the beaten path where like not a lot of tourists would be.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that's just the biggest negative. And then the second thing that does take some time to adjust is communication expectations. And that's something that we talked about in the video with Paul. And a lot of people took it as, oh, they don't speak Spanish, and the expectation and the issue is that they're expecting people to speak English back to them. That's not at all what we meant. Expectations and communications would be more so like if you're making a plan with someone in Canada or in Toronto, very specifically, like you're like a day at 2 weeks from the plan, are you going to be there? The day
Hmm.
before the plan, are you going to be there? The hour before the plan, are you going to be there?
And
Like,
like all the information's there. Where are you meeting? When are you meeting?
yeah,
What do you need to bring? Everything's like super structured. And here it's very vague sometimes. It's like, yeah, your kids have a tournament next Saturday. And you're like, okay, like what time? What time are they going to be doing
Where?
something?
and
What do we need to bring? And they're
they're
like,
telling
oh, like
some
you get
parents
it
the
bit by
time.
bit.
Yeah, like they're telling. So it's more so like that expectation of communication. A lot of places that we were dealing with specifically for the kids, in the most part, a lot of businesses deal with like WhatsApp here, but they weren't using WhatsApp to communicate very specific things. They're using kind of like the broken telephone method. And
they communicate it to the kids, but like our 6-year-old's like,
I don't know.
you know, looking around.
Doesn't share the message because they're 6.
So those are the types of expectations we were speaking of, not the actual language. And we don't know if this is specific to Puerto Vallarta because it is a beach town. It's a little bit more lax. It's very much like beach vibes, even though it is like a city. It's still very lax. So we didn't know if it was that or if it was more of a cultural thing. But again, it just takes some adjustment on our part.
Yeah, I think that's very understandable. They just misconstrued what you were trying to explain, and it's very understandable. It's like you're coming from a big city where, I mean, Toronto, that's a big city where it's, business and it's, very time oriented, to more of like, and I'm not saying that no person in Puerto Vallarta isn't time oriented. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule, but yeah, I mean, they're probably not culturally as time oriented, and it's more of a beach vibe, right? Whereas like Mexico City, might be more, analytical and time oriented and detailed, and even then you will find people who are not organized at all. Because culturally that's just how we are, right? We're not as organized as other countries have brought us up to be.
Yeah, and it happened on too many occasions to be like, okay, it's person specific almost. Like, and again, it's not really a negative. It just takes some adjustment, and it means that we need to clarify things if we don't understand it or if we're not 100% sure. It's just like a little added effort on our part, but it did happen on like many occasions, and we're like, okay, we need to adjust to this, I think, just to be clear on what's happening.
Yeah, you just need to ask a lot of questions. That's how you approach it. So some people are saying, how is it like in Puerto Vallarta with kids? Like, do you feel like it's a kids' place? Are there a lot of activities for kids to do, or do you feel like it's more of a party town? What's your experience?
I think in our experience, well, first of all, if you want it to be a party town, there's definitely a party scene somewhere, but like we're not really involved in that. And we were actually really pleasantly surprised with how many things there are here for children, especially when you're comparing it to somewhere like Toronto. I think one of the cultural differences, and we've talked about it many times, is that here, like the kids are involved, where I feel like in Toronto, it's very separate. And because of that separation, older people without children or like without little kids are not used to being around little kids, and little kids aren't used to being around other adults. And there's this like a weird, not behavior, but like people just aren't used to it, and they have like kind of negative feelings about it. Whereas here, everyone's always together. So it's like welcomed. And if you go to a restaurant, even really nice restaurants will have like a play area for kids. Sometimes they have a nanny for the kids. So that was really nice. There's also so many kid activities here. It's really easy to register, really affordable, which is different from Canada. It's like you can maybe choose a couple like within your budget. It's very expensive. Here we've been able to try taekwondo, drawing class, swimming lessons, all of these different things. There's a whole like park stadium area where there's so many different sports and activities available for kids and adults. Again, easy to register for that. Lots of school choice. I mean, I think overall we're much more social with other families, other kids. Our kids have made more friends here and have participated in more activities. So I would say, yes, it is great for kids. The one thing in Cinco that I noticed is a little bit challenging is because of the sidewalks and the cobblestone, like the strollers. It's not a thing. Like you see moms struggling with the strollers and like just carry the baby.
And shout out to Mexican women because they're carrying one, sometimes two babies up and down the hill.
One in the front, one in the back.
Nothing is stopping these women. So it's just like amazing to see. And again, we're coming from, paved sidewalks and, nice wagons and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just like overall, besides the sidewalk situation, there's so much for kids to do here. We live in close proximity to the estadio here, the stadium, and that really stood out to us.
Yeah, when
And
we first got here, we were like,
for those that don't know,
there's
the
so many.
stadium is kind of what separates like the downtown core to the start of Hotel Zone. It's a massive stadium with all of the sports you could think of: soccer, basketball, running track,
Zumba,
Zumba, an
boxing,
outdoor gym, which we
skate
frequent.
park, like everything.
Yeah. And in the evening time, once the sun goes down, all the families are there. You can just
Mhm.
hop in a basketball practice if you want. There's a park for the kids. So once we saw just the sheer amount of families that were in that park in the evening time, we're like, this is unheard of in Toronto.
Yeah.
Have parks. Yes, we have certain things, but we don't have that. And this is exactly what we were looking for in a city and in a place where we want to raise our children.
That's awesome. It sounds like you guys are living the life. I mean, honestly, is this a plan for you guys? Are you guys looking at making Mexico your permanent home, or are you not sure yet?
I think in terms of permanence, we'd love to stay here. I think for us, the Mexican culture, the language is just a very good mesh. It's exactly what we were looking for. And of course, like that was a big consideration before we wanted to move here, is like the language, the culture, the food, everything in between, obviously the landscape as well. And we've just found that perfect place in Mexico. And yeah, I think every day that goes by, it's like that sentiment is reinforced. Just very good experiences overall. We love raising our kids here, even like in PV, which is to a lot of people a party town or kind of like a weekly vacation spot, but we've definitely found our place here in Mexico. And again, we're not done exploring. We've not even scratched the surface on things we want to explore, but just
Sure.
in general, it's such a great culture, such a family-oriented culture, and that's exactly what we were looking for when we were looking to move.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There's a couple of questions that people have in the comments. We can take a few if you still have some time. How do
Yeah,
you
of course.
feel?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Let's take a few. Let's take all of them.
All right. There's a lot. So if you guys have some questions for Marc and Kathleen, please go ahead and post them in the comments section. Let's see. Let me go through some of them because it's the chat has been very active today.
Get an Annie.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for posting your questions. Yes, please give it a like if you're enjoying this interview so far. Somebody said their daughter came to Puerto Vallarta, said it was too hot for her, but she had a great time. Yeah,
It's
I think
hot.
we can all agree Puerto Vallarta is hot. Any
Very
beach in
hot.
Mexico is going to be hot. Um, let's see.
I think just to touch on a little bit the cost of living too. Um,
Yeah,
like a lot of people, they consider PV very expensive, a very expensive place, and it can be very expensive or it can be very affordable. Again, it depends how you want to live your life here. Do you want to live kind of a more local life and eat local eats, eat at taco stands, do activities in Spanish, or do you want to live that very, I don't know,
Like luxury
luxury?
travel.
So you can definitely get both here, but we tend to stick with just kind of wanting to live locally, wanting to live low key, and things. Yes, they might be a little bit more expensive than they are probably in small town inland, but they're still very affordable. And in comparison to where we're coming from, which is Toronto, you can't do anything out there without, you can't leave the house out there without spending $200 basically.
yeah,
So it's just completely, an other extreme living in Toronto. So again,
yeah.
like it really depends how you want to live your life here. If you want to live very locally, if you want to shop in a small like tiendas, markets, eat in taco stands, which is what we're here for. Like that's the experience we want. Then it's a little bit more affordable. If you want to eat at the restaurants on the Malecon and live in a condo in Zona Romantica, then you're definitely going to pay significantly higher.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's for all budgets. You know, obviously, we think that the $22,000 that you're, or 22,000 pesos that you're paying for your apartment, you know, that's pretty average, especially considering the area that you're in and the size and the amenities and everything. But yeah, you can obviously find places that are more expensive and less expensive.
Mm-hmm.
There's a range for everything. So far, have you felt that, you know, your cost of living has decreased by how much? Like just an average between Toronto and Puerto Vallarta?
I'd say at least it's 50%, at least 50% cheaper.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd say less than 50%, to be honest,
Okay. Yeah.
because our mortgage in Toronto with expenses was like 3 times more than what we're paying for rent here. Like cost of food is a fraction of the cost here. And we shop at like our local market. So we're getting organic grade fruits and vegetables
Good for you.
or quite literally like that's the most expensive thing you could buy at the grocery store in Toronto. And that's the least expensive thing you can buy
Yeah.
at a market here. So
That's
we're
the
like,
thing that we get excited when we like pile up all these fresh veggies and
we're
fruits.
like a huge
and
bag
then-
of mangoes.
Yeah, they total it up
Yeah.
and we're like, what? Like when we left Toronto, I think it was half a watermelon was $11.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And here, like we're getting like all of our groceries for like $15, and that's
15,
including a
20.
whole watermelon.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And fresher.
Yeah.
So it's
And
interesting to see like those differences, whereas, you know, we get just really fresh fruits, really fresh vegetables. The things that we absolutely love eating are the more affordable option here, whereas in Toronto we could not afford to eat those things.
yeah. It's the same in the US. You know, a lot of the most affordable things are packaged or ultra processed.
Yeah.
And in Mexico, it's very different. You can actually be healthy and save money too. So
Yeah.
somebody's wondering, you know, what was the drive like? And, you know, they've heard that, you know, some border towns are unsafe. What was that like for you? What was the planning stages like for you to plan your drive to Puerto Vallarta?
We really enjoyed the whole drive through the States and Mexico. How we planned the drive through Mexico was there's a Facebook group called On the Road in Mexico, and it's a huge group. I'm sure some people have heard of it here. And you can even like do a search and look for an exact route that people take, or a very common route that people take, and they include like what hotel they stayed at, and is the hotel pet friendly? Does it have a secure parking lot? All of that information is there. So we based our travel through Mexico and a lot of those recommendations. And it was beautiful. And I think I was worried that like it would be crazy driving and traffic and like stressful, but it was actually just really open road, beautiful scenery.
Yeah, once
Like-
we got, so we crossed over in the Laredo border town, so Laredo,
Okay.
Texas. So we just got up very early,
From Austin.
from Austin. Crossed over. There was one other car at that what do you call it? At the border, yeah, in
And
Laredo.
that was a Friday at noon,
Yeah,
too, right before Dia de los Muertos. So like
we got up
there was
early,
no-
but we didn't get there.
We stopped for food.
And like my biggest concern with actually crossing was that they were going to take everything out of the car and search everything. And it was like a couple of suitcases. They asked us a bunch of times like where we were going, and then that was basically it. So from that point on, we had just a very nice drive, no issues at all, nicely paved highways. We stayed on the toll roads as well. So yes, it is more expensive, but you just get a very pleasant drive through the mountains. Like the scenery is just amazing. And it's not everyone's experience. There have been people that have had issues with driving in the States or driving in Mexico, but it was not our experience at all. Just a beautiful, easy drive altogether. And we took our time too. We stayed a couple of nights in San Luis Potosi, and we
Nice.
stayed a couple. Did we stay? Is that the only place we did a two-night?
In Mexico, yeah, Mexico, and then one night in Guadalajara, but we
Guadalajara.
didn't really. That was like our at the end stretch, and we were all just
We're like, let's
super tired.
get the PV like
Let's go to
ASAP.
bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
we
then
took our
you-
time with the drive, yeah, for sure. With especially having the kids, like in San Luis Potosi, we're just like, let's take it easy, let's explore a little bit, and
Yeah.
a beautiful drive.
Get them to run around a little and not be so
Yeah.
restless for hours and hours in the car. Yeah, totally. But you felt overall like, safe the entire time you were driving. You didn't have any issues.
Yeah. I think the biggest
people
issue we had is
assume that
coming
they're
into
gonna get
the
stopped by a cop and get extorted for all their money. So anyway.
Note, and there was just like at one of the toll roads, there was like army people, and they just looked at our passport quickly and gave it back to us and just flagged us on. Like that was the only time that we had an interaction with like a police officer or an army person.
We got pulled over at the American border, like coming into the States. That was the only time that they had really questioned us.
But that's no, it's like it's a known thing that like when you cross into the States from Canada, like you're going to get grilled, and we got grilled.
They're looking to see what we might have brought back.
Yeah, they're asking us like what we were doing in Mexico. We're like, why do you care? Like we're not sitting here, So we had like all paperwork and stuff, like the temporary visa and all that. So we're like, yeah, we're definitely going there. We have all the papers to show us. But yeah, they were very interested in what we were doing.
Yeah. But again, it wasn't like at any point we were overly nervous or like anything bad happened, and we just got like a few extra questions, got to go into the little interrogation area, and they searched a few things as well. But overall, like just an overall really smooth and enjoyable experience driving here, to the point where like we'd like to do it again. Like we drive back to Canada, maybe back, like if we had to travel.
Your car did okay.
Car did okay until we got here, thankfully. And it's a little bit of an older car, so we've been having a few issues here and there. I'm sure the cobblestone roads do not help, but it's just another thing we have to navigate, like how to find a mechanic shop and get things fixed, which is also different here versus back home, but we've figured it out.
I think those experiences really helped our Spanish, actually, because we were like, I don't know. This is a whole other vocabulary, even in English for us.
Definitely. And then when you open up a bank account, it'll be a whole other set of words that you'll be exposed to. And what about residency? You mentioned that you went to the Toronto consulate, Mexican consulate. Can you talk about that process? Like how long before you could get an appointment, and then once you got your appointment, what was that process like? And people are always asking this question.
So we got the residency for Marc in Toronto. You want to say?
Yeah. So we got the residency in Toronto, and then through a facilitator, we were able to finish the process here in PV. And again, just going through a facilitator really eased the process for us, because we didn't speak that level of Spanish to be able to actually go to immigration and deal with a person like face to face in regards to very technical language. So yeah, overall, it was a really smooth process. Like got the approval in Toronto. Once we got here, finalized everything that needed to be done for Kathleen and then the kids. And although there were a few hiccups with translations of documents, so the kids' birth certificates, which has to be like very, very specific. Like if there's a box, even if the box is empty, like it has to be there, it has to be translated. So a few hiccups on that front, but the overall process for residency was very smooth here.
And
so you went through family unification, I assume, Kathleen,
Yes.
he applied first, and then you and the kids were petitioned in Mexico.
Yeah, and that's like one thing that we didn't know. It wasn't on the website for the Mexican consulate. We figured that out. We had like a phone call with a lawyer, and they told us that we could do that. So instead of both of us applying for temporary residency, which would require, because we went through economic solvency, which would be hard for both of us to apply for that and then bring the kids as dependents. Marc got the temporary residency, and then I and the children through family unity here got our temporary residency, and it's a good hack. It's a cheaper hack than both of us do it. Yeah.
And I want to say something. Oh yeah, in regards to the consulate in your local town, so if you are applying for residency, it's best to like not wait, because the requirements do change quite often, but also depending on the time of year, depending if there's any holidays coming up, it could take longer for them to get back to you. Could be that they're not accepting people, then they're accepting people. So like just inquire as soon as you know for sure you want to move here. And in our experience, it was very smooth. They got back to us very quickly. The information they provided was great, but we did have friends go through the same process, and it wasn't as smooth as ours, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just like some people, maybe you came more prepared with more documentation, or maybe the person that happened to process your residency was in a better mood that day. It's just there's too many variables. But I'm glad that you had a good experience. So, from the time that you reached out to the consulate to when you got an appointment, about how long was that?
So we reached out to the consulate like quite early, because they told us to email. So we reached out, like sent all the documents, and they're like, "Oh, you're only looking to move around September," which is what we had put. Message us, in August at some point. So at least we were confident that like they would be able to do it within a short period. And then I think I ended up messaging them even earlier than August, like July, just to be extra sure. And within a couple of weeks, we had an appointment at the consulate, got everything. And then once you're approved, once the visa is in your passport, you have 6 months to enter the country. So we definitely knew that within the 6 months, we would be crossing the border. So we just kind of like researched timelines and made sure that everything fit within our timeline, and it ended up working out just perfectly for us.
That's great. And I also agree with you 100%. I mean, even we have customers who even speak fluent Spanish, and they still hire facilitators, because even if you speak fluent Spanish, you don't know the exact process. And sometimes, immigration agents aren't always very helpful. And some of them are very helpful. So no shaming on that part, but sometimes they're not. And sometimes they tell you, oh, we need ABC document, and you show up with ABC document plus 3 copies of those, and they're like, oh, you forgot DEFG, and those things that they didn't tell you when you first inquire about it. So
dealing with any sort of official in that way in Canada, United States, Mexico is very nerve-wracking. And also, again, it just depends who you're dealing with. Even dealing with, immigration in English would have been difficult. So it's just an extra difficulty to do it in Spanish. So yeah, the facilitator was great overall. And just the overall process was very smooth. So we're very thankful, because we do have kids, and it's a lot to manage to show up to immigration with 2 kids, and one is crying and this and that. So
and waiting with them,
waiting with them, and
yeah. I'm so happy for you guys, and I'm so glad I met you all, and I think you have a beautiful family, and I think you're gonna be living a really, really nice life. I can tell just from the energy that I'm getting right now. I want to thank you both for sharing so much about a little slice of your life with all of us tonight. And thank you to your kids for being so patient. I know they're like, Mom, Dad, get off your computer.
So they're like back from school now, so They're still
Yeah.
very
They're
energized.
like,
So
hey, play with me.
yeah,
Needed activity.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, and thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Like we love, sharing, the good, obviously, but just our overall journey, because it can be quite intimidating, and we've gone through the process, and that was a big motivator for our YouTube channel, just being able to talk about it openly and sharing our journey with people, because we get messages all the time like, this was very intimidating until you guys kind of talked about
Yeah.
what happened. And yeah, we're just so thankful that you had us on and we're able to share that with your viewers.
Yay. I'm about to share their YouTube channel. Oops, sorry. I'm going to share their YouTube channel with all of you guys in the comments. So if you want to go follow Kathleen and Marc, More Life Diaries, youtube.com @More Life Diaries, or you can follow the link that I just shared in the comments with everyone. So thank you, Kathleen and Marc, again. And let's keep in touch. I would love to maybe do something more in the future. Maybe we can do a follow-up if you guys are open to it. But yeah, let's keep in touch.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds good. Yeah. Keep in touch 100%.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Thank you so much again for having us on.
And thank you
And
to
everyone at home.
Yeah, everyone.
Everyone at home, thank you so much for tuning in tonight and watching. I hope this has been helpful and that you guys have gotten some good tidbits of information out of this. Again, go follow them on YouTube. And if you haven't joined the newsletter yet, please join the newsletter, because I'm about to announce our newest residency series, which is going to come out on Thursday. So if you want to find out what that is, and it's going to answer a lot of questions. Hi, babies. How are you? Hola. They're so curious. I love it. They're adorable. But join the newsletter. I'm going to announce our residency series Q&A. It's all about residency, shares a lot of answers to most of your frequently asked questions. Some of the things that Kathleen and Marc touched on today will also be covered. So yeah, join the newsletter and I'll share when that is going to go live. So again, muchas gracias a todos en su casa, and thank you, Kathleen and Marc.
Okay, gracias. Adiós.
Gracias.
Hasta luego.